Hi, I'm Chef Owen Tilley, and I want to welcome you to this week's edition of Ask the Chef. This week's question comes from Susie. Susie wrote to me and said she was at a great Italian restaurant the other night and had a dish called shrimp Fra Diavolo and would like to know if I can teach her how to make it at home. Well, Susie, this is one of the most simple Italian-American dishes that are out there. And I say Italian-American because you really won't find Fra Diavolo in Italy. It's more of an American concoction. But it means brother devil, so you know it's going to be a little bit spicy. Let's get started. Now, the ingredients you're going to need for this are about a pound of shrimp, a can of diced tomatoes, and I'm using canned tomatoes because what they do is blanch and remove the skins. Now, you can do this if you want to. It's called concassing, but it's going to take you a little while. And remember, we like to keep things simple and keep things easy. So we're going to go with a 14 or 15 ounce can of diced ready tomatoes. We also have a half a cup of cooking white wine, about a half of a onion that I've chopped up, some basil, some oregano, a couple of garlic cloves that I've crushed up, about a teaspoon to a tablespoon of red pepper flakes. And now that's your call. You can make it spicy or you can make it a little on the tamer side, and that's up to you. Also going to have a little bit of olive oil, some salt and pepper, and our pasta. So now that we have all of our ingredients together, let's get started. You're going to want to use a rather large pan and put it on about medium-high heat. We're going to let our pan get hot and we're going to add in a little bit of olive oil. We're going to add in about a tablespoon and swirl around the pan to let it get nice and hot. All right, now we're going to add in our shrimp. And when you're cooking, you always want to make sure you give your protein a lot of room, so you don't want to have it all stacked up because it's going to cook unevenly. So now I'm basically just taking and spreading the shrimp onto the pan to make sure they have plenty of room to cook. Now, we're going to let the shrimp cook for about 2 minutes on each side, and that's going to be just enough to sear the outside of the shrimp so it maintains its flavor, but not let it overcook when we add the rest of the ingredients. If you're really not comfortable with cooking shrimp, all you have to do is go back a few blogs and I lay it out for you, teach you how to cook shrimp right every time. So these are just about ready to turn, so I'm going to turn all the shrimp over individually. And yeah, you know, we could shake the pan or just take a spoon and turn them, but it's really good to turn each one individually so you know that it's cooking on the right side and it's not going to become tough by cooking too long on just one side. All right, so now that we've turned them over, I'm going to add in our red pepper flakes. Now, I like it spicy, so I'm going to use a full tablespoon. You might want to start off with a teaspoon or even a half a teaspoon. And like I said, you can really add all you want or as little as you want to make it as spicy as you'd like. So what's happening now is that those dried chili flakes are being soaked up by the oil, meaning the oil that's left over in them is going through the oil, so that's going to evenly spread the heat out throughout the entire dish so you don't get little pockets of heat. Next, we're going to add the onions. Now with this dish, like several that we cook, we're not really looking to brown the onions or caramelize the onions because like I said earlier before on other takes, it really gives it a sweetness that we don't really want in this dish. So to cook onions, we're going to go to translucent. That's just where you can start to see through the onion. And it literally takes maybe a minute or two on medium-high heat. Okay, those are pretty close, so we want to add in the garlic. I added the onions in first because garlic is really, really tender. It's a delicate thing to use, so you don't want to overcook it or cook it too long because that'll make it turn a little bitter. We just basically want it to relax and release all of its oils into the pan so it flavors everything. All right, now we're ready to add our white wine. Now I like to use white wine with this dish. Some chefs prefer to use vermouth. It's your call. I just think that the white wine really does the trick without adding in a lot of more flavor, whereas your vermouth, it's going to add a distinct flavor to the dish. So what we want to do is we want to let it just sit here and simmer. And it's going to simmer away and reduce and reduce. And when you're using alcohol in cooking, you want to make sure that you cook the alcohol. alcohol's flavor is really polarizing. It's almost a burning flavor that you get sometimes. So we want to let it reduce so all the alcohol evaporates and all that you're left with is a really good flavorful liquid that has no alcohol left in it. So we're going to let this go for another minute or two. In the meantime, I want to talk to you about the pasta real quick. When you're cooking pasta at home, I know it's easy and it's tempting to do it quick and then shock it after it's cooked in cold water. Well, you don't want to do this. The best way to do is to cook to al dente, and al dente simply means to the tooth, which means it has a little bit of uncooked portion in the middle of it. Has a little bit of a crunch to it. Now, the reason why you want to do this is because we're going to finish cooking it in the sauce. So when you cook it and you get to al dente, simply drain it, spread it out on a sheet pan and let it cool naturally. Give it a little olive oil or a little bit of oil so it doesn't become all sticky, but let it cool that way. That way it retains all the starches in the pasta, and that's going to help thicken our sauce. So now that we're reduced down, we're going to add in our tomatoes, juice and all. So I'm just going to let this cover for a bit. We're going to cook for about 5 to 10 minutes to let the juices simmer down a little bit more and reduce, and just to let the flavor really develop within it. We're going to add in our pasta. And like I said, we want to get it down into the sauce so that it starts picking up all those great flavors. And like I said, releases its starches to help thicken this sauce. All right. So as you can see, we've been cooking for a while here. So that's really important when I said earlier about not cooking the shrimp all the way through, but just lightly searing it on each side, because if you cooked it all the way through and went through this process, your shrimp would be really tough and it's just not going to be pleasing for anyone. Now last, I want to add in our basil and our oregano. So there we go. I think we're almost ready here. And at the very last, I like to put in a little bit of sea salt. I'm not going to add any pepper to this because we already have the red pepper flakes and it has plenty of heat to it. So I'm just going to give it a few turns of the salt mill. And now we're ready to go to the plate. And there you have it, shrimp Fra Diavolo. Just as you'd have it in a restaurant, but in the own comfort of your home. I'd like to thank Susie for asking the question of how to prepare a great classic Italian-American dish, and I want to invite you to come back next week. And remember, you keep asking, I'll keep cooking.